Let's be honest. If you ask my Uncle Bob what he thinks about Gen Z, he'll tell you they're a bunch of screen-obsessed zombies who can't boil water without a TikTok tutorial, and that the world is doomed because they'd rather build a personal brand than get a real job. But what if we stopped complaining about the symptoms for a second and actually looked at what's going on underneath? The truth is far more fascinating and a bit less insulting for Bob. We're not dealing with a simple case of extended adolescence. We're looking at a genuine shift in human psychology. For the first time in history, an entire generation grew up with the entire knowledge of humanity in their pocket before they even finished forming their identity. This isn't just about social media. This is a neurological shift. Today, we're breaking down why their brains run on completely different software, why their version of success looks nothing like yours, and why they might actually be the ones who are right. But to understand where they're going, we first have to understand why they've completely abandoned the dream their parents spent 40 years building. The first big shift is structural. Boomers and Gen X were raised on what psychologists call grand narratives. A linear path, school, stable job, house with a white picket fence, 401k, retire with a gold watch, solid, predictable. Gen Z inherited a world that fell apart in real time. Financial crises, climate chaos, housing prices that look like phone numbers. Their brains internalized one core survival rule: nothing is permanent. That creates insane adaptability, but also a deep allergy to long-term commitment. If you see a 22-year-old switch from crypto trader to mushroom farmer in 6 months, it's not flakiness, it's strategy. In a world that changes with a click, staying rigid is the biggest risk. They are constantly forced to adapt, which leads us to a fundamental question. Is it time to rewire your brain? Now, this constant change has made them hyper-aware, but it's also given them a superpower. A way to see through the noise that most of us are still falling for. And it all starts with their internal filter. Everyone loves to say Gen Z has the attention span of a goldfish on a bad Wi-Fi connection. Wrong diagnosis. They're bombarded with thousands of stimuli a day. To avoid a mental meltdown by noon, their brains developed the most advanced information filter in human history. In 2 seconds, they know if you're selling something fake, performing a role, or being real. Authority no longer comes from a title or a diploma they see as a 200,000 piece of paper. It comes from transparency. Their version of self-improvement? Watching someone on YouTube say, "I'm actually struggling today." They'll take an ugly truth over a pretty lie every time. But what happens when you turn that radar inward? When you realize that you don't have to fit into a single box anymore, the result is beautiful, but it carries a weight that most older generations couldn't possibly imagine. The third pillar is a bit heavier: the end of boxes. Before, you were an office worker who likes fishing. Period. For Gen Z, identity is a spectrum, a Spotify playlist that changes with the mood. That fluidity comes from the fact that they've watched the world's struggles and cultures on live stream. It created what we call radical empathy. They carry the weight of global injustice, but that hyper-awareness has a cost. This is the generation of eco-anxiety. Imagine, you don't even have a driver's license yet, but you already know the Arctic is melting, bees are dying, and the healthcare system is collapsing. It's like trying to play Tetris, except the pieces fall at 300 kilometers per hour and the screen is on fire. That's why mental health is their absolute top priority. For them, seeing a therapist isn't weakness, it's basic maintenance. They're not more fragile, they're just more aware that the engine is overheating, and this obsession with mental health and authenticity is exactly why they are currently setting the traditional corporate world on fire. If you think the Great Resignation was big, you haven't seen how they've redefined work itself. Let's step onto the minefield, the office. 50-year-old managers are losing their minds. They're not loyal. They want to work remotely from the beach. It's not laziness, it's pure logic. Gen Z watched their parents, Gen X, sacrifice themselves for companies that tossed them aside like used tissues at the first crisis. They learned the lesson. The company is not your family. The company is an exchange of time for money. Their work psychology is centered on the now. They want meaning immediately. If you tell them, work hard for 15 years and maybe you'll get an office with a plant, they'll laugh in your face. This is what people call quiet quitting. It's not quitting, it's just doing the job, and at 5:01 p.m., they're already elsewhere. It's a revolution in the relationship to time. And spoiler, they're winning. But there is a dark side to this independence, because while they are winning the battle for time, they are losing a much more personal battle against a silent digital companion. Gen Z is the most connected generation in history, and yet they report feeling lonelier than a hermit in a cave. The algorithm is their best friend and their worst enemy. It gives them access to everything, but it also forces them to compare themselves to the top 0.1% globally. Good luck feeling good about yourself when a 16-year-old with a six-pack is showing off his third startup while you're just trying to afford groceries. But here's where they're brilliant. They turned the internet into a massive free self-improvement lab. They learn video editing, behavioral psychology, decentralized finance, in-between cat videos. They bypassed institutions. They don't ask permission to learn or create. That's a level of firepower no previous generation ever had. So after all this, the anxiety, the screens, the radical changes, where does this actually leave the rest of us? Are we witnessing the end of society or the beginning of a better one? So, does Gen Z think differently? Obviously, but it's not a rupture. It's a necessary adaptation. They're not destroying the world. They're recalibrating it to be a bit more human and a bit less robotic. Understanding their psychology isn't just about learning weird expressions to sound cool in meetings. It's realizing the world has changed, and you can't run it with a 1995 map. Their pursuit of authenticity and their refusal to accept absurdity are gifts, even if they sometimes come wrapped in sharp sarcasm. Thanks for following this breakdown. If you're Gen Z and you recognized yourself, the comments are yours. If you're from another generation and you're finally starting to understand why your intern doesn't want to stay late on Friday night, hit the like button. I'll see you very soon to explore more corners of the human mind. And until then, stay curious, stay authentic, and put that phone down for 2 minutes. Yes, I know, that's ironic.